Hello, listeners. Welcome. You've made it to Arts and Crimes. It's a true crime, true art podcast. And I'm your host, Kelly Boyles. And I have with me today my brother, Josh.
Hi. Nice to be here, Kelly. Long-time listener, first-time guest hoster.
Yeah. You've listened longer than literally anyone else. So that's pretty good. Okay, so the way that this podcast works, since it's the first one, I'll give you a quick rundown. It's a combination of art, because that's what my degree is in. I'm an art teacher. That's sort of like my zone. And then also crime, because I'm a standard middle-aged white woman and we love crime podcasts. So combining those two to make Arts and Crimes podcasts. And I'll go over crimes that are related to art, or art that's related to crime, kind of how the two meet somewhere in the middle. Some are more crimey, some are more arty. But, you know, at least the two will be involved in whatever it is that we end up talking about. So, yeah. And I
feel like you could relate Jackson Pollock to all crimes, though. Like every murder scene, you could be like, it was like a Jackson Pollock. So yeah. It's not any crime and art intersection. It's actual.
It's actual art and crime intersection. Yeah. Although maybe in some of my research, I'll find a Jackson Pollock for you and sneak that in. But today we're going to talk about Peruggia. Do you know who Peruggia is? Have you?
I've never heard of Peruggia.
Okay. Okay, so here's what's great is that I know at least part of you has, because this is for like the nerds to connect here for a second. In Mass Effect 2, the video game, in the mission where you have to go get Kasumi as a companion, you have to break into this art dealer's like art vault, and you have to go find his like DNA and his password.
To bypass the security.
Yeah, to get through his security. And his password in the game, when you find it, is Peruggia. So it fits perfectly because Peruggia is the man that stole the Mona Lisa.
Really?
Yeah. So which is wild because the Mona Lisa is wildly famous, but nobody like really knows Peruggia. At least not anybody that I've talked to knows who he is. So.
Maybe they don't talk about him to try and avoid copycats. They're like, we don't want to publicize this guy because then everyone will be going after the Mona Lisa.
Well, the Mona Lisa, I think, would be really hard. That would be like an Ocean's 15 sort of heist that they probably still wouldn't do. But the way, when you hear about how he steals the Mona Lisa, you're like, nobody's gonna do this because it was like a one-time thing. So I'm excited to tell you about it because you don't know anything about it. This is great. So first, I really want to give you just a really quick synopsis of the Mona Lisa, because there's kind of three key players in this game today, and that's the Mona Lisa, the Louvre, and Peruggia, obviously. Vincenzo Peruggia, that's his name. The Mona Lisa, we all know, was painted by Leonardo da Vinci. You're giving me a look. So hopefully you knew that. If you didn't, that's totally fine. That's why I'm here. That's part of the reason for my podcast, the existence of it. And did you know that it's not known as the Mona Lisa in French or Italian? That's not its name.
I didn't know that. What's it known as?
In French, it's La Gioconde, and in Italian, it's La Gioconda.
What does that mean?
That's her actual name.
Oh.
Yeah. So she was painted she was an Italian noblewoman, Lisa del Giocondo. And
so Lisa is also her name.
Yeah, Lisa is also her name. Yeah.
But we in the English world are more informal. So we're like, we'll call her by her first name.
Yeah, exactly. Also, we try and like formal it up a little bit because we call it Mona, which is like abbreviated form of like Now I can't remember the word, but basically Madam.
Okay.
And so it's Madam Lisa is basically what we're saying.
I see.
So they use her last name, more or less, and then, but everybody knows it as the Mona Lisa now.
Yeah. Except for the French and the Italians.
Well, I'm sure that they know. They don't call it that, but they know.
They're like, the dirty Americans, they call it the Mona Lisa. It's not even theirs.
Yeah.
What right have they to rename our priceless art in the Louvre?
I always think of Brian Regan,
the Louvre.
So yeah, that's so. Like I was reading a bunch of stuff about it and doing research, and in all of the like documentaries and stuff, they kept calling it La Gioconda or the Gioconda or La Gioconda, and I was like, it feels so much more fancy that way, but it's fine. Anyways, so the painting is super famous, but it actually wasn't that famous in comparison before it was stolen. So like the fact that it was stolen actually raised its fame quite a bit. But some of the reasons that they say that it's famous or that it's captivating, there's like some techniques that Da Vinci sort of employed in creating her. One of them I love. It's how he makes the painting look like it's following you around the room. So if you're like wherever you're looking.
I assume it's like evil spirits or some kind of possession or something like that.
No,
the occult.
I think that was either a different painting or a different painter that employed evil spirits. Well, I don't know. But not particularly this one. So one of her pupils is straight on and the other is off. So that...
She's got a lazy eye.
Well, it's not lazy, but it's not too directly forward pupils. So that when you move around the room, it's a technique that multiple painters use. So that when you move around the room, it looks like it's following you.
All these painters are like, when you paint your patron, like the wife of the lady, make sure to give her a lazy eye.
It'll work. Just trust me. It's definitely not something you would look at it and be like, oh, she's got a lazy eye. It's a very minuscule detail.
Is lazy eye offensive?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't know. If there are in the comments, please inform us how you prefer that we refer to lazy-eyedness in future podcasts when we're discussing other art.
Because it'll for sure come up.
Yeah.
The other technique that he used is sfumato.
Wait, what's the lazy eye technique called? Does it have a name or is it just like...
Trickery?
Do they just say, give me the old lazy eye?
Yeah, I don't know if it has a name. It probably does, and I just don't know it.
Okay, but the other one's called sfumato.
Sfumato.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's... So what sfumato is just the blurring or softening of transitions, like shadows and portions of the face. So instead of having like hard lines that are shaded, it's entirely created with that technique of softening and shading so that it looks incredibly realistic. And Da Vinci was a master at that. It was something he was incredibly good at.
Wait, so is this like a soft focus, like in photography? Or is it something that makes it look more lifelike?
It makes it look more lifelike because in real life, we don't really have hard lines necessarily.
Okay.
And so it's don't. Anyways, we don't generally have like lines that outline stuff.
We're not animated.
2D things. And so having those softened lines, like on your face and all that kind of stuff kind of helps give it a realism.
Interesting.
Where like, I think what you're thinking, like soft lighting and that kind of stuff for photography gives
soft focus. Yeah. So that if,
gives it like a dreamy look.
You have some blemishes. They don't look so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of us need it more than others.
Yeah. It's different purposes, but it kind of has a similar effect.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the Mona Lisa in a nutshell, more or less. And the other kind of important aspect of this case is the Louvre, mostly because that's where the crime happened. And I was like doing a bunch of research and I found all this really cool, interesting stuff about the Louvre. And I was typing it up and then I was like, am I boring? Am I a boring person? I find this really interesting. So I'm going to try and sum it up as like quickly and interestingly.
You know what you should not do in your podcast is label things boring before you talk about them. Listen, the next 5 minutes, just
skip
take
forward.
a nap. No, I thought what you were going to say is like, am I planning a heist? Like you were learning all this stuff about the Louvre and you're like, I'll be the next Peruggia. What's his name?
Peruggia.
Peruggia.
I think if that was what I was thinking, by the end I would go, I don't think I can break into the Louvre. If it was 1911, I absolutely could. Because that's when this heist takes place, is 1911, when like forensics was like, I don't know, did you see him kill him? Then we don't know.
Yeah.
So the Louvre, just really quick, because I think this is interesting. Originally, it was built as a medieval fortress in like the 12th century. So it's been around for a really long time. And that's where the name comes from. It was called the Louvre. So it was originally built as a medieval fortress in 1190 by Philip II. And it featured a 98-foot tall keep. And it had like a moat and all that cool stuff that medieval keeps should have.
So like a stereotypical castle?
Yeah.
Like with a moat and a drawbridge?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was just old and cool.
Okay.
And then
at the time it wasn't. At the time it was brand new.
Yeah, it was cutting edge.
At 1190.
Yeah. All the people in 1190 were like, we can't believe they've done it. They're insane.
Yeah.
And then other people were like, Bartlemy's a witch. Just kidding. He wasn't a woman, so it's fine. And then, so it lasted for a real long time. And then in the 16th century, Francis I came and he demolished most of the building and then replaced it with a new fortress, but in the Renaissance style. You're absolutely going to love this. Because it was that royal palace where they lived for a long time, and it was decorated in the style of Rococo.
Rococo?
Which I know is your absolute favorite.
That's going to be my catchphase for this podcast.
Rococo. And parts of the Rococo, I almost said
How's it actually pronounced?
It's Rococo.
Rococo? Rococo.
And I almost said it wrong.
Yeah.
But parts of the Rococo decor
Rococo
part of the house, you can still go and see it at the Louvre.
Really?
They maintained it and rebuilt some of the parts that were damaged at some point. And anyways.
The Louvre is huge though, right?
Yeah. So after he rebuilt it, then he built, like later on, they built the palace that they actually live in, but instead of demolishing it, which is the Palace of Versailles, is where the royals
heard of that one.
Vivier. That's not French. Yeah, that famous one. But during the time that King Francis and all of the other royals and stuff were living in it, they accrued a whole bunch of art. And with all that art and the architecture and that kind of stuff, they sort of started collecting it and keeping it. They were pretty good at taking art from other places.
Sure.
And so the royals continued to add on to the Louvre, building new components and new parts and new sections.
Was this just like a castle that they were like, we got so much art, we need to add it? Or were they like, we're making a museum for the people?
No, I think it was more like, we like art and we want this and this is where we live. And then eventually it became a museum of the people.
After they did the old guillotine.
Yeah, I think it's the French Revolution. That's when that happened?
Yes.
So after that, so it was like 1793 is when the French Revolutionary government opened the Louvre officially as a public museum.
Oh, wow.
And
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it was not until almost 1800 that it was open to the public as a museum. Then at that time it had about 537 paintings. And it worked on a 10-day work week, which I thought was interesting. So 3 days, it was actually open to the public. 6 days, artists were allowed to go in and they would like practice, paint replicas,
Really?
like study, and you could like live there, which technically you can still do to this day.
That's cool.
But you have to be a like professional artist, recognized professional artist, and you're on a huge waiting list, and only 150 artists are ever chosen to
per year or season or
per
whatever.
season or whatever. So yeah, but and then the last day was a day for like maintenance and cleaning and that kind of thing. That's how they got their 10-day work week.
I see. So they were like, listen, God said 7 days in the last one for rest, but
the Louvre says 10.
10 days.
Exactly.
I mean, honestly, it makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
We got 10 fingers, so
10 days, 10 fingers. It's easy to keep track.
You know what? I'm siding with the Louvre.
Yeah. What day of the week is it?
Over God on this.
It's thumb day.
It's thumb day.
Oh no, we have two. But actually it was forced closed very shortly. So it opened 1793 and then was forced closed 1796. So not super long.
Yeah.
And the reason was structural issues. And then it remained closed until Napoleon opened it in 1801, and he renamed it Musée Napoléon.
Sure.
Because why not?
He was a nice, humble guy.
Yeah, super humble. So humble that he reopened it so he'd have a place to put all the artwork that he plundered. So he would put it all in there. And then he actually, so there's only 5 times where the Mona Lisa was not housed in the Louvre. Mm-hmm. And one of those times was because Napoleon was like, I want this at my house. And so he took it and hung it in his bedroom.
That's hilarious.
And so it was there for a while.
But then the Mona Lisa would be in his bedroom watching him all the time.
Well,
even during, intimate times.
Some people like that. And Napoleon did.
Napoleon liked it?
Yeah.
I like it when she watches.
Yeah, he's into that. So yeah, it hung there. And then after Napoleon's defeat in 1815, they were like, you have to give back some of the art. And that includes the stuff in your bedroom. So the Mona Lisa was put back in the Louvre, and a bunch of art was returned to a bunch of places, though a significant amount they kept anyways.
Yeah. So Napoleon plundered a bunch, and then they were like, we'll give like half back, and the other half, we should get something.
We gotta
get
some, yeah, basically. We can't give it all back. So yeah, the other times that it was taken out was they had the Franco-Prussian War. They took it out during then in case something happened to it. And that was in 1870. And then during the theft, it was gone in 1911. And then this was all times, the 5 times Mona Lisa has been removed from the Louvre. And then the next time was World War II. They removed it and most of the art from the Louvre, actually. They removed and they hid in like wealthy French families and stuff around the place, and like hid in other places because they didn't want the occupying Nazis to take the art.
You know where they should have hid it? Poor French families. Obviously, the Nazis are going to check the rich French families.
Yeah. Well, and actually quite a bit of art that was stolen from wealthy French families. But they mostly targeted wealthy Jewish families. So.
Yeah, that does seem like it's their shtick.
Yeah, it's kind of what the Nazis are known for.
Yeah.
And what they did was the Nazis actually opened the Louvre to the public as like, you can come to the Louvre, but there was like nothing there.
Yeah.
And they used 6 of the rooms as like their sorting hub for all of the art that they stole from other places. So it just was like, bleh.
Do you think that Hitler was like admired Napoleon and was like, what? He got the Louvre. He opened it for the people. Let's do that too. I'm just as good as Napoleon.
I think Hitler thought he was better than everyone.
Yeah.
But I also think he had such an affinity for art because he went to art. He wanted to go to art school. He was a failed artist and like loved the arts, like huge into musicals, I think. And I just watched a whole documentary series about Hitler. And there was a lot. It was woof. Yeah. But yeah, I think he just thought he was better than everybody and wanted to do everything better than everybody else, even when he absolutely didn't. Yeah. So I think that's probably what he's going for.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the last time that the Mona Lisa was removed from the Louvre. Sorry, I really need to hiccup. And then the last time the Mona Lisa was removed from the Louvre was in the 60s. Jackie Kennedy really loved the Mona Lisa and requested that she could come tour the States. And so in the 60s, it went to New York and Washington, D.C. at her request. So
must be nice.
Yeah, there's Jackie Kennedy. But all that just build up to the very exciting what we came here for today, the heist of the Mona Lisa. So with this, there's a few different theories that people like believe to be true. I have one that I kind of think is the vein of truth. And then there's...
So we don't 100% know what happened?
Not 100%. And there's not a ton of information, believe it or not. Like you can't...
Really?
You can't read the court records, partially because it's in Italian. So I guess if
someone
you can unseal it, you can read it in Italian and that kind of stuff. But there was a film director that did a documentary that has just like the longest name. But if you... It's
on your notes.
It's on my notes.
You don't want to risk offending the Italians.
I wrote it as a link, so I'll have to put it in the show notes or something after this. But it's like the thief of the Mona Lisa, the unheard Peruggia. That's not even what it is. Oh, anyways, it doesn't matter. But he spent like 30 years trying to figure out what happened with Peruggia, and he went down and he had people that spoke French and Italian to read the records because they found letters that Peruggia had written and court documents, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of the best source of information as far as like those accurate records. But as a whole, there seems to be sort of like a kind of a backbone of what really happened, and then kind of a lot of speculation from media. The media was wily on this guy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of explain the theft on how it goes, more or less how we understand it.
Okay.
So this happened on a Monday, the 21st of August, 1911. And it was done on a Monday because the Louvre was closed on Mondays at this time for like maintenance and cleaning and that kind of stuff.
So they gave up on the 10-day week?
Yeah, they didn't even agree with their 10-day week. They went back to the 7-day week.
I take it back. I now agree with God.
And Vincenzo Peruggia kind of secreted his way into the Louvre. And he knew how to do that because like 5 months earlier, the Louvre had hired a carpentry company to come in and build protective glass cases to put over a bunch of the artwork because they recently had some vandalism. Some people had come in and slashed some canvases, which sucks.
Was it climate change protesters?
Probably not in 1911.
Oh, okay.
I didn't look up to see what they were protesting. I didn't want to immortalize such acts.
Yeah, okay.
So
sorry. We're moving on.
Don't vandalize precious works of art.
Irreplaceable art.
Yeah, that doesn't send a message that you're looking for. So to protect a bunch of the stuff, they hired this carpentry company, which really it's just glass that you would put like in a window. So it's not, I mean, I guess they weren't thinking like people would come in with guns, but it's not fancy, extra heavy, double plated glass. It's just like window glass and regular wood. And Peruggia was on that team of people that came and helped build these protective cases.
Glass enclosures.
Yes. So he came into the Louvre, and per his admittance in the court records, he says that he got up in the morning and he just walked in the front door with a white coat because workers wore white coats, and he knew that because he worked there. The media and other sources say there's no way that he did it on his own. And so there was 3 people, and they all hid in a closet overnight. And then, oops, I banged my mic. That they all hid in a closet overnight and then came out in the morning, which there's a couple reasons why I don't think that is. Number one, they never had any evidence to back up the fact that there was more than Peruggia. The only evidence, because there was an eyewitness.
Yeah.
And he only saw one person. But additionally, if you were going to hide in the Louvre at night, why would you wait till the next morning to go and do your shenanigans? Why wouldn't you do the shenanigans at night after everything's closed?
Good point.
So that doesn't make any sense to me.
Also, like, they are overestimating people's like awareness.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do cybersecurity, and one of the things that we study about are penetration testing. I can say words right, right? And sometimes they'll actually do a physical penetration test. So they'll say, "Hey, we need you to break into this building." And a lot of times the pen testers are like, "Great, we'll break out our, RFID readers and we'll clone the badges, blah, blah, blah." But like the smart ones just go, just going to put on a hard hat and a little name tag and go in and tell them, "Oh, I'm here to fix the toilet on 3 or whatever, Like, that's the easiest way to get in, and it works more than it doesn't.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I read an article where Geralt of Rivia, who is the guy that plays
The Witcher?
The Witcher, who's that guy that plays him? Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill, yeah.
I read that he went somewhere like in New York or something and just put glasses on, or he did some little thing and nobody recognized him. And I think he said one person talked to him to tell him to get out of the way or something like that. So I think, again, sometimes the simplest thing is the right answer.
Okay. Same thing with Tom Cruise. When he was filming Collateral, I think, which he plays a hitman, he wanted to get into the mindset of it. Mm-hmm. And he dressed up as I think it was a UPS guy or a FedEx guy, but as a delivery man, and just went delivering packages. And all these people were like, "Wow, that delivery guy looks kind of like Tom Cruise," but like nobody called him out on anything.
See, there you go.
So yeah, it's
just
funny.
Blend in. So yeah, that's what he said he did. He just put on a worker's coat and walked in at like 7 or 8 in the morning. I think it was just after 7. And just walked in. And the other thing that he knew about this, because he worked there, was the Louvre usually has... Oops, I hit my mic again. So normally the Louvre has a bunch of guards. But on Mondays, when it's working, they go down to a skeleton crew of like 12 people.
For guards.
12 guards for the entire Louvre, which is huge. And I don't know how much bigger the Louvre is now than it was in 1911. But, I mean, it's still a massive building either way.
Yeah.
And so, he basically just put on a jacket, walked in, 12 guards, super easy. He said he walked all the way into the salon where the Mona Lisa is and didn't run into anybody. Nobody saw him walk in. And then we come to the part where we kind of hit the second of multiple theories. So as far as what he says happened, is he walked into the salon and he took, because there was a protective case around the Mona Lisa. So he took that down and he took the Mona Lisa down and then he walked it into a stairwell. And he set it down in the stairwell. There was like a grouping of student paintings that was hanging there. And he just tucked it in with those. And then he went downstairs because he knew there were service stairs in that room because he'd worked in that room before. Yeah. So he went down the service stairs to the bottom of the stairs and tried to get out that back door, but it was locked. And so he had brought a screwdriver with him so that he could dismantle the casing and get the Mona Lisa off the wall, because it's on the wall on like metal, like a metal cage.
Okay.
And so he used the screwdriver to try and jimmy the lock, which he couldn't do. So he just took the doorknob off. But he got the doorknob off and he found the door was still locked. And he couldn't get out the door. And then he heard somebody coming down the stairs. And it's a set of stairs that goes down and then you have to turn a corner.
Yeah.
So it's like 2 flights that turn. So he could hear somebody coming, but they didn't quite see him like fiddling with stuff. So he just, instead of like running or trying to hide or do anything, he just put the doorknob in his pocket and sat down at the bottom of the stairs. And the guy came up to the stairs. And the guy's name was Jules, what was it? Jules Sauvé, or I'm not sure. It's a French name. Sav or Save. And he came down and he looked at the door and looked at Peruggia and was like, what's up with this? And he's like, I don't know. And the guy recognized the white smock, but was a plumber. So he wasn't from the crew that would have recognized him, which is the carpentry people. Yeah. So since he was a plumber, he was from a different company and didn't know that Peruggia wasn't supposed to be there. And was like, okay, unlocked the door, left, and then closed and relocked the door. So he's still stuck in the stairs. So he was like, shoot. So he went back up the stairs and took her out of the... So
the story at the bottom... So the story at the bottom of the stairs, that guy told it.
Yeah, that's how he told it.
Peruggia or Peruggia. The plumber?
And the plumber.
Okay.
Peruggia and the plumber. And this is where the eyewitness stuff doesn't match with the theories of 3 people, because the other theory is at this point they would have had 3 people in the stairs to carry it, because their reasoning for saying that it couldn't have been just Peruggia is because all of that stuff, the protective case, the frame, and the Mona Lisa itself weighed over 200 pounds.
Okay.
And so I did research on how much it all weighed. And the protective case, the glass, the wood, all that kind of stuff together was about 150 pounds.
Okay.
The frame itself is about 50. And the Mona Lisa is only about 18 pounds.
Because the Mona Lisa is smaller than people think, right?
Yeah. It's like 30 by 21 inches.
Okay, yeah. It's not a great big.
No. Also, the other thing that people don't maybe know is that it actually is not on canvas. It's painted on wood boards. So it's 3.
Really?
Yeah, it's 3 wood boards that are put together, which is not uncommon for Italian Renaissance paintings of that time. So there's quite a few that have been painted on boards.
That's so weird.
Yeah. So the painting itself is only about 18 pounds.
Okay.
So as he said, he took it down and dismantled it. And in the component parts, it's entirely manageable by one person.
Yeah. Doesn't that seem insane, though, that he's just like it probably took a while to dismantle it. And if someone walks in and is like, what are you working on there? And he's like, I'm just replacing the glass.
Yeah, just doing my thing.
This French accent that I'm doing is not helping your...
Which is great because Peruggia is Italian.
Oh, right. How do I do an Italian accent?
I don't know how to do one that...
Ciao. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Just replacing the glass. Ciao. And then he drives off on his moped.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and he knew how to take it apart because he helped put them together.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
he wasn't in there for like 2 hours fiddling. He probably...
No. I think they say that it took him about half hour, 45 minutes.
Okay.
So between a half hour to an hour to do the whole heist.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So not long, and I'll get to this in a second, which is part of why it was so successful. And it's like so French, which maybe is a stereotype that I shouldn't say. So anyways, he decides, okay, I can't. And that's kind of where the deviant is, with the 3 and the 1 people.
Yeah.
So he goes, okay, well, I got to get out of here another way. So after he takes the Mona Lisa out of her frame, he tucks the frame back with the student work.
Mm-hmm.
And then the painting is not big, but he can't like tuck it under his jacket. So what he most likely did was just took off his jacket and wrapped it around the painting.
Yeah.
And then what he said was he just wrapped it and walked out the front door. And again, I absolutely think that's what happened. 1, because that's what he says happened.
Well, he's a thief. We can't really trust him.
Well, I mean, yes, but like...
And what if he was like, I'm not going to tell these guys the real thing because I'm going to go steal her again?
I think at the end, Peruggia is adorable. So at the end, you can tell me what you think. Okay. If he's like, no, he's an absolute mastermind. I think he's just sort of like, maybe not adorable, because he did have a couple other crimes to his name. One of which was trying to steal from a sex worker and like money. And another one was he got in a fight but had a gun with him. I
feel like there's a giant leap from stealing from a sex worker to
the
stealing
Mona
the Mona Lisa.
He like really escalated.
Yeah.
So, and then like seconds ago, I'm like, but he's so cute. He's adorable.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. Anyways, so, he has his close encounter with the plumber, Sauvé, and walks out the front door. And as he's walking out, he realizes he still has the doorknob. So he takes the doorknob and he throws it into, there's like a ditch between the building and the wall. He just throws it there, which they found later. And he goes and he gets on a bus. There's just like a bus that comes by and he just hops on the bus and then goes, wait, this isn't the bus to take me home. And he gets right back off the bus again. And then he goes, this will be better. And he flags down a horse and carriage and has them take him to his home. He's got the Mona Lisa on his lap. It's like, take me to this place. It's my home. So like if the cab driver had like seen the Mona Lisa or was even questioned maybe.
Yeah.
But they never,
they never found out which cab it was.
Yeah, no. And so he takes the painting home and he
puts it in his bedroom. We all know why.
Napoleon.
There's no greater thrill.
Napoleon knows why. So yeah, he gets away with it. So then comes the 2 years before it gets returned. So it's 2 years and they don't actually ever find it. So what happens is the next day, the Mona Lisa's or the Louvre is open and somebody that's like a student that's working and is doing studies from it is like, where's Mona Lisa? And they're like, oh, it's in the back getting photographed, which was not uncommon.
Yeah.
But somebody said that without double checking. And then, so they were like, okay. And he's like, all right, I'll wait because it doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
And hours go by and the Mona Lisa is still missing. So he goes back and he's like, it's still not back. And they're like, okay, we got to go check this. Excuse me. So they go back to the photographers and they're like, where's the Mona Lisa? And they're like, we didn't have it. We don't have it. And that's when the Louvre staff is like, oh no, this isn't good. So they call the police and the police, they shut down the Louvre and they send out 60 investigators just everywhere trying to find it. And they are like asking the staff a bunch of questions. They are asking people that had worked there.
Is this when they find the doorknob?
Yeah, they like searching everywhere, right? And they find the plumber because he was working there.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, did you see anything? And he's like, yeah, actually, I saw somebody in the service stairs trying to go out the back, but he couldn't. And he's the only person I saw, and it was in the morning. And they're like, okay, so around 7:30, 8-ish is when that happened. And they're like, okay, can you describe him? Can you like point him out if you see a picture of him? So they show him a picture of every single staff member. And he's like, no, it's not any of them. And so they're like, okay, what do you look like? And he described him as very tall with red hair and a red beard. And Peruggia is 5'3" with black hair, no beard, but a sweet mustache. So nothing like what Peruggia looks like.
Did Peruggia have disguise, or was the guy just like, I'm pretty sure he was a ginger?
No, he did. And he didn't have any kind of disguise. He just walked in by himself. And the guy just was terrible at remembering faces or physical features of any kind. But he did remember that there was only one human, which he can identify humans, presumably. The other thing that the police found during their investigation was that one of the guards, that his post was the area that the Mona Lisa was in, was out sick that day. And well, he wasn't sick. It was his child. I don't know why that matters, but it was in all the reports that his child was sick, not him.
And he was taking care of the child.
And he was taking care of the child, but he did get a replacement. But his replacement that covered his shift was a heavy smoker and was out on a smoke break for that hour. And so wasn't in the areas. That's why there was no guards there. So what they did was they called in the leading criminologist of fingerprint expert at the time, whose name was Alphonse Bertillon, which was an entirely new kind of forensics.
Yeah.
So the good news is there was a very clear thumbprint on the glass. In some places it says the glass, in some places it says the frame. Doesn't really matter. There was a thumbprint.
Yeah.
That Peruggia left. And that was great. The problem is at that time you had to manually check against like physical cards.
Yeah.
Obviously they didn't have like a computer system that you could just put it into. And at that time there was about 750,000 criminals that they had fingerprinted in Paris.
Yeah.
And there was over 200 employees. And so the investigator was like, well, just do the employees for now. So they did the like 200 and something employees. None of them matched that he could tell. And so then they decided to do the fingerprints of the companies they had recently hired out.
Okay.
Which included the company that Peruggia worked for.
Yeah.
And so when they called for everybody to come in and give fingerprints, Peruggia just didn't show up. And
that was a smart move.
You really outwitted him.
Criminal mastermind.
Yeah.
Would you please come incriminate yourself? No, I don't think I will.
I think I will skip. And so the police were like, well, we got to go check on this guy that didn't show up. So they go to his house and they knock on Peruggia's door and they go to interrogate him. And they go and talk to him. And his alibi was he was by himself, but he was so drunk that night, that he was way too hungover to be able to perform a heist. And the police were like, that checks. And didn't question it.
Was this the French being a little biased against the Italians?
Well, and like he wasn't treated super great. Honestly, he wasn't treated super great for being an Italian immigrant.
Yeah.
And he said later that part of the reason that he wanted to get back and steal the Mona Lisa was because they used to call it, his coworkers were mean and used to call him macaroni. So he wasn't treated great. So it might have been part of that. Except that they decided while talking to him that there was no way this was the guy that stole the Mona Lisa, because they had gone off of this idea that he was this upper class criminal mastermind.
Yeah.
And they labeled Peruggia as a dimwit. They were like, he's not very intelligent. He is just like not smart enough to pull off this kind of incredible heist.
And also he was not 6 feet and not a ginger with a beard.
Yeah, not a redhead. And so they didn't bother getting any additional fingerprints from him. And they didn't bother...
Feels like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, well, they didn't even bother checking his house. Because if they had, just around the corner, because his apartment is like one room with like a little off room. Mm-hmm. And in that little off room, he just had it resting against the wall with the rest of his firewood. And they were like, what's in there? And he's like, my firewood. And they're like, cool. And then they left. And it was just sitting there. I can't even imagine how he kept his cool. But yeah, they didn't find it. And so time kept going by. They couldn't find it. And that's just sort of how the police stuff went. So with the media, the day that it was found to be missing, there wasn't really much media coverage because the Louvre didn't make an official announcement for a while. Mm-hmm. But once they did make an announcement, it just like catapulted to the front papers of everywhere internationally. Yeah. And this is where a lot of the like misinformation comes in. because the media started just saying things that were not, there wasn't backed by anything. And that even continued 20 years, like years after it was found, actually.
Really?
Yeah. And some of the information was so poorly researched by the media. The Washington Post actually printed the nude Mona Vena by Salai, which is basically a reproduction of the Mona Lisa, but she's nude. They printed that, and they're like, Mona Lisa missing, but it's not even the painting.
That's a fanfic. They were like, we found it. It's on Tumblr.
That's exactly what it was.
Or DeviantArt, I guess.
Yeah, there it is. And so, yeah, they had lots of suspects that they went over. So one of the first suspects, the guards were like, there's this guy that comes in and looks at the Mona Lisa a lot. And the police were like, get him. And they found him, and he wasn't the one. I mean, truthfully, though, they also scratched Peruggia off the list. They're like, he didn't do it. So I don't know, but he didn't do it.
But the guy that came and looked just was in love with Mona Lisa.
Yeah, which a lot of people claimed that. And there was lots of like hubbub about how she was this beautiful, mysterious, like woman that was romantic and all this kind of stuff. The newspapers also reported that it was foreigners that stole it.
Sure.
Technically
it was a foreigner.
I mean, that's true. They weren't entirely wrong, but they pegged the wrong foreigners twice. So first they said it was the Germans, and then they said it was wealthy Americans. Specifically, J.P. Morgan was named because in one of the newspapers they're like, it's been spotted in a luxury Manhattan apartment. And they're like, J.P. Morgan. But they went and actually talked to him. And he's like, I don't have Mona Lisa. And he did.
And he was like, that room over there is for my firewood. Don't look.
Yeah, don't look.
Doesn't that seem like a better movie, though? Like J.P. Morgan shows up at the Louvre. He's like, how much for the Mona Lisa? They're like, it's not for sale. And he goes, we'll see.
That would be that'd be so much more, because the movie with Peruggia would be like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it's over. It is
just the dumbest, luckiest thief of all time.
That's really all it was. Like, it all just really worked out. But that's not what the media wanted to hear. They were like romanticize this. And also, like in this romantic idea, they had this idea that it was a foreign gang of like art thieves. And this is one of my favorite suspects, is they brought in and questioned Picasso. So Picasso, he's also an artist for our listeners. Yes. Pablo Picasso was famous Spanish artist. So he had been known to purchase other art that had also been stolen from the Louvre. And they were statues that he used for some of his really famous artworks, paintings.
Really?
He used those stolen statues. And they were stolen by an assistant of his good poet friend, Apoyer. And so they brought in Apoyer and Picasso, and they're like, give it back.
Okay, I want to amend my statement about the better movie, because better than JP Morgan would be Picasso goes to his thief buddy and says, steal me the Mona Lisa. And he goes, I can't do it. Nobody can. And he goes, we'll see about that.
Really?
And Picasso steals the Mona. But then he would have left in, you know how sometimes they'll like create a fake one?
Oh, yeah.
He
like
leaves
swap
but what's
it out.
his style? Cubism?
Cubism, yeah.
Yeah, he leaves a Cubist Mona Lisa.
That would be amazing.
I don't know if he was even doing Cubist stuff then, but...
well, he started out with realism, so I don't know. I don't know the numbers on his jazz.
Yeah.
But they brought him in. I love it. I love this. There's some good that's done by this, because they brought him in and they questioned him. And they're like, you stole the Mona Lisa. And they're like, we really, really didn't. And the police are like, if you're sincere, give back the other stolen statues. And they did. So at least they got back the other stolen statues.
Hilarious. Also, that the police just knew there were other. Why didn't they go to him a while back?
Yeah, I don't know.
Were they like, I don't know, he's doing pretty good art. He can keep the statues for a while.
He can hold on to it. It's like for the greater good on this one.
Yeah.
But they knew they had it in their back pocket.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, now you have to give it back. And then the last one that was sort of outrageous is like, again, many, many years after the Mona Lisa was returned, people still were like, no, we don't think the heist went this way. It was too amazing of a heist for it to be this dumb luck sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so they're like, there was this criminal mastermind, Eduardo de Valferno, and he set the whole thing up. And if like so many people did research and they cannot find proof that this Eduardo de Valferno is a real person. It was...
That's how good a thief he is.
Yeah. It was printed in like an American journal. And they were like, and I can't remember this journalist's name. Again, I just don't want to make him famous.
Yeah.
I forgot to write it down. But he was known for not writing things that were checked in any way. So he just like made up stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? Like tabloids kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there was absolutely zero evidence that backed this, other than he fulfilled the like romantic man of mystery and intrigue that they really had wished had stolen the Mona Lisa.
They should have just said James Bond is real and it was him.
That again would be a better movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 years of this speculation go by.
Yeah.
And Peruggia still has the painting hidden in his apartment.
And he's still living in his dumpy little apartment?
Yeah. And he's just like working day to day, looking every now and again, like in the tabloids to see if maybe there's somebody he could sell the painting to, because he doesn't actually...
So he is trying to move it.
He is, yeah, but like not urgently.
Okay. Which makes sense.
Yeah. And there was a bunch of like art theft police guys. I forget the word name now.
Investigators?
There it is. That said it's not uncommon for art to sit for a long time after it's stolen because it's too hot to sell.
Yeah.
I feel like I just sounded like I knew what I was talking about for a second there. It's too hot to sell. And oftentimes doesn't really get sold and instead is used as collateral for like underhanded other deals that people don't want, like a bunch of drugs or, whatever, so that nobody wants the stuff to be known.
Yeah.
So that's more common. But Peruggia didn't have any connections with any kind of underworld dark market stuff because he like was just a regular guy. Do
you think he read the papers that was like, it was JP Morgan and he was like, I should call him. He's got the money for this.
Yeah. So then during that time, he said that he showed it to one person and it was his friend Lancelotti was his name.
Fantastic name.
I know, right? And he said that he let Lancelotti see it and keep it in his house for 6 weeks while Peruggia built a wooden trunk that had a false bottom to keep it in.
Okay.
So he built this wooden trunk with a false bottom, and then he could wrap the Mona Lisa up, put it in there, and then put a bunch of stuff over it in the trunk.
Yeah.
And he did that. And he said that people would like come to his house, and it's a big trunk because it's the size of, 30 by 21 or a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And his little apartment wasn't very big. And he had a girlfriend at the time that was like, when we get married, this trunk is out. And they didn't get married. He got rid of her and kept the trunk, I guess. And so then what happens is he's holding on to this, kind of looking around, and he sees an art dealer that's in Italy, Alfredo Giri, and he had stuff in the paper, and it said, like, literally he was quoted as saying, "A buyer at good prices of art objects of every sort." And Peruggia read that and was like, "This is my guy." And so Peruggia sent a letter to Alfredo and said, "Hey, I have the Mona Lisa. and I want to sell it. Are you interested in buying it? And he signed it Leonardo, like Leonardo da Vinci. Clever.
That's super clever.
Mm-hmm. And so there was some back and forth. And eventually it was agreed upon that Leonardo, I say that with air quotes, that Peruggia would have to bring the Mona Lisa to Italy because Peruggia is still in France working.
Yeah.
That he would need to bring it to Alfredo in Italy, in Florence. And he would pay him 500 lire for it, which, so if you do the conversions, which I didn't because I'm terrible at math, but somebody else did. And they said it would be that in today's market, in today's American dollars, that would be about $2,970,000.
Not bad.
So not a bad amount.
Yeah.
And so they agreed on that price. And so in December of 1913, he went out for drinks with his friends and left a really big tip to the barmaid, and then told his friends and family that he was going to go back to Italy. He had a real big thing he had to do. And he got on a train the next day, and with his crate that he filled with, like, he had the Mona Lisa in the bottom, and then he put clothes and tools and all of his stuff in there, and got on a train and took off to Florence. And it was stopped at the border, and they opened it, and then were like, clear, closed it, and he made it through. Like, they didn't check for a false bottom or anything. So he gets to Florence. He checks into the hotel and then meets up with Alfredo Giri. And Giri looks at it and he's like, I have to take this back to my gallery, which is the Uffizi Gallery, just to verify that it's real. And if it is, I'll buy it. And Peruggia's like, sweet, I'll stay here at the hotel. And so he's like, okay. So he takes it, and Giri takes it back to the hotel or to the gallery, because the Louvre, after the Mona Lisa was stolen, they sent out to museums and galleries images of the marks that the museum has to verify authenticity of the Mona Lisa. On the back of the painting, there's like the Louvre has its own seal that is put back there. So they had a picture of that. And then they have images of the craquelure, which what that is the back of wooden paintings. They crack as they age, and it creates a very specific pattern. And that's really difficult to fake. And so they have images of that with the seals sent to the museums and stuff. And so Giri looks at it and is like, this is the real Mona Lisa, and immediately called the police. And so Peruggia's back at his hotel, like dreaming of all the money he just made, and then is arrested and apprehended. And he's like, you got me. He like completely admitted that he had stolen the Mona Lisa. So they get the Mona Lisa back. They contact the Louvre. So on December 12th of 1913, the Louvre says, we think we found the Mona Lisa. We just are waiting for verification. And then the Italian government calls and they're like, we got her. So the Louvre was a little afraid that there was going to be some problem getting the Mona Lisa back. Like they were afraid Italy was going to be like, but we're going to keep it. But instead, Italy was like, can we have it tour around Italy for a little bit and then give it back? And the Louvre was like, yeah, that's great. So it did a little mini tour in Italy. And then on January 4th, 1914, the painting was rehung back in its original place in the Salon Care, or however you say it, Carre with an accent. Yeah, I should have like looked up how to do it. But anyways, that's the salon that it was originally in. So right back in its spot. So here's the last kind of bit of this is the trial and the verdict, which I think is also kind of funny how this all ends. So he's arrested and people found out who it was and were like really disappointed that it was just this, like, he was the son of a bricklayer, and he was not like romantic
genius mastermind.
Yeah, he just was this really average guy.
You know what I want to know? Who thought of it? The ex-girlfriend. That was like, that trunk's gotta go.
reading it.
The newspaper, and she goes,
I was there. Which is funny because people said that, like, in reports, they're like, he only dated her because she looked like the Mona Lisa, but she had like really long blonde hair and like looked nothing like the Mona Lisa. So again, false.
Could people in the early 1900s not distinguish between people? Like,
I think it was just the wily media was like, wouldn't it be great if this were true? Now that I've typed it, it is true.
Yeah.
We said it, it's canon, but that's not, that's not how it is. And so, he was just this, like, committed a couple petty crimes. And then when he explained how he did it, they were like, also lame and disappointing. Yeah. We don't like it. And because he had admitted and confessed to stealing the Mona Lisa, the trial was more or less an inquisition just to determine the length of his sentence. Because there was a couple arguments of his culpability as far as like mental ability.
Because they said he was a dimwit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the trial began June 14th, 1914. And his defense was that he had stolen it to return it to Italy. So he was telling them that it was all for patriotic reasons.
I don't know how well that's going to play in a French courtroom. But.
Well, the trial actually happens in Italy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They didn't send him back to France. Which was fine because it still didn't play well in Italy because they were like, but really, you just asked for 500,000 lire.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, well, it was for my country. And then there's also reports that he tried to sell it to another art dealer in London first, but that had fallen through. Though he swears that he didn't because he was like, I would never sell it to a Londoner. But there was also letters that they found from Peruggia that he wrote to his family that said that he was going to make his fortune and he was going to do something that was really big and get it all in one go. But in none of the letters did he mention anything about it being for his country so much as for his gain financially.
For his bank account.
Yeah. Yeah. He also admitted during the trial that he had looked at other paintings possibly to steal, but decided on the Mona Lisa. And they think that in part because she's a smaller painting and would be easier to abscond with.
That makes sense.
So that all sort of undercut the patriotism angle in that one. So instead, his defense leaned real heavily into his mental deficiencies. But they really didn't hold true to that because he was functioning fine. Like he maybe wasn't the smartest guy, but he certainly wasn't like incapable of knowing what he was doing. So, and like during the trial, he would like jump up and shout and interrupt and kind of yell contradicting things. Because at one point he did say other people were there, but then he said other people weren't there and he could never name anybody else that could have possibly helped him. And then at one point he also claimed that he was bewitched by the painting and that's why he'd taken that one.
Sure.
Which was like, that's really what the media wanted to hear, but it didn't really pan out. So ultimately they found him guilty in August of 1914 and he was sentenced. How long do you think he was sentenced for?
Let's see. I'm going to guess it's got to be either really long or really short. So I'm going to guess 3 years. 1
year and 15 days. But it gets better. It's on like wholesale here because his lawyers submitted an appeal, filed an appeal, and the judge was like, all right, time served. Because he ended up serving for 7 months and 8 or 9 days. It's 8 in some reports, 9 in others.
Yeah.
But it really ultimately wasn't him getting his freedom because literally days later, World War I broke out. And he joined the military and was immediately caught and kept as a prisoner of war for 2 years during the war. Then he came home And he returned to Italy, and then he moved back to France, got married, and it's said that he wanted to take his wife to go see the Mona Lisa at the Louvre, and she was worried that he would be recognized, and he was like, nobody will recognize me, it'll be fine. And so he took his wife to go see the painting that he had stolen. And that is the story of Peruggia.
Oh, his wife that looked just like the Mona Lisa?
She did not. So yeah, there's a little bit of like, we're not 100% sure what happened, but
I feel like the way he was caught so stupidly kind of supports the dumb luck hypothesis.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I was like, it was stupid how he stole it, and it was stupid how he got caught.
Yeah.
So, but I do think it's really interesting because, like, man, 1911, crimes, media, all that kind of stuff was so wily.
Yeah. Can you imagine, like, just how easy it was to do crimes without security cameras?
Yes. No security cameras. Fingerprinting was difficult. There's no DNA evidence.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he could have left his entire beard if he had one.
Yeah.
Which he did not. But they'd never be able to find him that way.
Yeah.
So.
That's hilarious. I also really like the idea if he'd become some kind of master art thief and he left a doorknob at the scene of every crime, you just randomly remove him. Okay. I think that's what made it difficult. Like why they thought it was a genius is because he did these stupid things that they were like, no one would be that dumb. Yeah. So they probably puzzled over that doorknob. Like, why did he take off the doorknob? And then they had to they have one of those conspiracy walls.
Yeah, with all the red string.
With a doorknob in the middle and there's some grizzled French detective smoking a cigarette going out the doorknob. What does it mean?
Just going crazy. He has to divorce his wife and never sees his kids again.
And then they caught the Mona Lisa guy and they returned the he's like, but what about the doorknob?
No, he never gets any peace.
Yeah.
So yeah, there we go.
That's awesome.
He's a great thief, but not actually.
Yeah. He's an incredibly lucky dude.
Yeah, it's like the greatest theft by the worst thief.
Yeah.
And truly, that is why the Mona Lisa is as famous as she is. Because of
the theft.
Because
everyone went nuts over it.
Yeah. Because before then, she was like a famous painting. Yeah. But she wasn't wildly famous like she is now. Everybody knows the Mona Lisa.
Probably Da Vinci's the one that set it up.
Yeah.
He was a certified genius.
Yeah, I was going to say, he was an actual mastermind. Too bad he was very much so dead.
Or was he?
Oh. It's like the best spot to end. We'll end it there.
Okay.
So yeah, thanks for listening, and hope to see you next time at Arts and Crimes.